Hi, this is Kat Lloyd, PAW PALS TV. I hope you guys are doing well. Last August, I had a phone call from my friend Martha Graber Thomas regarding a little dog named Suzy euthanized immediately after pickup by Smith County Animal Control. Let's take a listen here real quick.
I got her as a puppy and took her to get all of the shots she needed. Brought her home, but realized when I brought her home and turned her loose, she wanted to run to the highway.
Okay.
So I put her on a 50-foot leash and kept her in the house most of the day. Took her out about 3 times a day for a good long walk, out to the mailbox and so on. And she became my partner. Then after 7 years of her loving me and my loving her, I had her leased to this area near the fence and working on my lawnmower. I didn't realize she got loose, so she would go. And an hour later, I found that she had gone, I guess, over the highway.
On 155.
A day later, I talked to the man who has a fruit stand.
Okay.
He saw Suzy, and she said, I can't keep her, I'm going to put her over where there are other people to take care of her.
There was a neighborhood across the highway. Mm-hmm.
And that's what he did. For 2 days then, I knocked on doors until the police said no more knocking on doors.
Oh, wow.
To find, and then I did find the right person who had seen her and told me how they had loved her and cared for her, but she would not go into a cage.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And so I hoped that she would be safe.
Yeah.
But someone called the county.
Smith County?
And they came and picked her up about noon on Wednesday.
Oh, wow. Okay. So what happened after noon on Wednesday?
All right, then the next day I went to the shelter expecting to find her.
Right.
They didn't know anything about it. I asked to look through the dogs, the 30 dogs they're holding. I couldn't find her. Still, they didn't know what happened.
Okay.
And then the next day, I called back to the lady who was in charge of the shelter. And after a while, she said she's been euthanized. Why? Did she bite anyone? No, she didn't bite anyone.
So
and from that time on, I couldn't get any other answers. I asked to be able to pick up the body.
Okay.
And I came back that same day.
On Friday.
And they had a completely frozen dog in a box.
Wow.
And that's what they gave me. Still no reason for her being euthanized. I don't think she was ever put into a cage. I'm sure she was completely distraught and helpless. And so she did growl, but as far as biting anyone, when I needed to correct her and found that just by loving her, I could talk her out of anything.
Right, right. Where's Suzy right now? She buried?
Yes.
Where?
Right under the tree, right over here on the other side. Yeah, I have about 15 dogs that I got when I was golfing, dropped off at the golf course. And I kept those dogs, sometimes as many as 15 at one time.
What is supposed to be taking place next week? Did they set up a meeting?
No, they didn't want to meet with me. I asked to meet with those two people, the man who picked her up, and
So the animal control officer.
yeah,
And
no, couldn't get a meeting. No, in fact, when I tried to call in the future, they said we can't understand what you're saying.
what would you like to happen?
I'd like for them to be forced to cage the dogs and wait for someone to claim them.
We were joined by Tammy Caraway, a neighbor of Mr. Thedford, that can put together the other part of the story of what happened to Suzy once she got into her neighborhood. Let's take a listen real quick.
On Monday afternoon, late, around 7:30 or so, I was driving home, and I live on Winter Circle, and I noticed a little dog underneath a neighbor's truck. And so I thought, that's odd, because I've never seen that dog, and I have a dog. And so I went home, and I told my husband, I said, I'm going to walk next door to the neighbor's house and see if he knows where the dog belongs. So I went over next door, and his daughter was in town from Fort Worth. She loves animals. So she said, I'll walk down there with you. Let's see about the little dog. So we walked down there, and we saw the little dog, and she was getting the little dog from underneath the truck. I knocked on the door. The neighbor came out. She goes, no, that's not my dog. And I said, well, the dog has a collar on, and it has a little leash on. And it was obvious that the little dog evidently maybe had chewed the leash. So I said, well, we're going to try to find who the dog belongs to. Well, I remembered that a neighbor 2 doors up rescued dogs. So I said, well, let me get on the phone and let me call her, Martha, and see if she can help us out, because we didn't know where the little dog belonged. Another neighbor walked by, and she said, no, I've never seen that dog. So I called Martha. Martha said she's out of town, so then she said she sent her husband. So Mike came down with a leash. And in the meantime, my neighbor's daughter was playing with the dog. And Martha had asked me to take pictures of the dog, so I took pictures of the dog, and I sent them, made the connection with Martha, and then we got the dog, put it on a leash, and we was walking it back to Martha's house, where he could stay until she got in touch with someone that could help. And we took the dog there, and Mike had a little kennel, and the little kennel, the dog wouldn't go in the kennel. But Steffi, who is Gary's daughter, was playing with the dog, and she didn't seem mean or anything. She just wouldn't go in the kennel. So we all decided not to upset her, just let her go back to where she was. And the next morning, Martha would get in touch with someone who could possibly put her picture on the website for lost dogs or whatever. So the little dog went back to the truck. We went home, and I go to work about 8 o'clock. So between 7:30 and 8, I saw her still under there was a white truck.
Okay.
And I noticed that, and I said, oh, the little dog is still there.
Okay.
That's odd. So I was driving by, and I saw Mike with his dogs, and he was out, and so I stopped and rolled the window down. I said, that little dog is still there. And he said, oh, okay. I said, in the same place. And I went to work, and when I came home that Tuesday, the puppy wasn't there.
Okay. So the puppy wasn't there. Do you know what happened? Did you call animal control?
Well, actually, I saw Mr. Thedford, and I stopped because my husband had told me that it was your puppy. So I stopped, and I beckoned for him to come to my car, and he came, and I said, did you find your puppy? And he goes, no, I didn't find her at the shelter. I looked through all these dogs, and she wasn't there. And I said, well, that's odd, because when I spoke with him, I said, well, being an older guy, I said, well, maybe they just didn't get the understanding from him.
Yeah.
So I went online, because he said the dog was at Ferguson Street, and I said, I'm going to look this up. So I looked it up, I saw it, and it had an email. And once I emailed them, I explained that we found the owner of the dog. It was an elderly man.
Okay.
Please contact me. He had been looking for the puppy. And so I called the next morning because I didn't get a response that night. So I called.
Okay.
I spoke with, and I want to say her name was Angel,
Okay.
at the animal shelter. And she said that they had already spoken to the older gentleman and
Okay.
told him what happened to the dog. With the sound in her voice, I was like,
What happened to the dog? Yeah.
to the dog? And when she told me, I was a little upset
What did they tell you?
that the dog was euthanized
Did you ask why?
because the dog was aggressive.
Wow.
And I said, that dog was not aggressive. Not with us.
Yeah.
And she said, well, that's what the officer said.
Okay.
And I was really upset. I was at work, so I said, oh my, okay.
What do you want to change here?
I think they should actually honor 72 hours. At least a puppy that has a collar, that puppy should be, have a wait period. Because a stray animal I could see without a collar, but that dog had a collar on.
Yeah. Okay.
So I believe that should be the thing. They should honor that.
Would you encourage Smith County to pass that?
Yes.
Why?
Because pets are part of a family. And definitely elderly individuals. That's their family.
Immediately after filming, I reached out to Nathaniel Moran, our Smith County judge, for help. He immediately called Mr. Elwin Thedford, spoke with him, and facilitated PAW PALS TV to meet with the shelter manager to see what happened. Unfortunately, I received a phone call from Mr. Elwin Thedford's family that he was in the hospital not once but twice, and then the worst happened. I attended Mr. Elwin Thedford's funeral, and it was probably the hardest thing I've ever done. Let's take a look real quick.
He told me that Suzy was his best friend. Suzy taught him a lot of things, including how to love in a different manner. He told me about his nieces. He told me about you, Krista. He says that you were an amazing cook. I asked him to come out for dinner with me so we could celebrate his birthday. He talked about the most amazing parties that his family, his nieces, and his great nieces gave him. He looked forward to it. But he told me that as soon as he got back, if he was still alive, because he had nothing else to live for now that Suzy was gone. I will not rest until we change things, not only in Smith County, but in the state of Texas. Our animals sometimes are our only friends. I make an oath to you and your family and your friends, Suzy's death will not go in vain. We will resolve this, and the only thing that he asked in his video was for this to never happen to anyone else. I honor Mr. Thedford. I only knew him for a short period of time, but he called me sometimes 10 times a day to make sure that I stayed on the case, and I will.
I want you to know that immediately after Mr. Elwin Thedford's passing, the shelter director for Smith County, with the blessings of Nathaniel Moran, the county judge, and the county commissioners, we traveled to Austin, Texas to learn more about passing a spay-neuter microchip ordinance and to revising their ordinance so that it includes a mandatory 72-hour hold. Let's take a quick peek at what happened.
So if you guys could just talk about our programs that we do here so she has some kind of idea.
So right now you don't have the mandatory hold. How long are you holding?
We do hold them for 72 hours, but if
But it's
they're
not codified.
aggressive or sick, we do not hold them. So we automatically euthanize them.
We're going to continue covering the story until the mandatory 72-hour hold is passed in Smith County. Now watch part 2 of Justice for Suzy next Saturday after 5 o'clock to see what we learned while we were in Austin meeting with Don Bland and his team. This is a very, very hard case for me to talk about. Mr. Elwin Thedford touched me. I have never seen anyone so giving and so caring for animals, for his community, for the people in the community that maybe sometimes didn't have money to pay for bills, the many things that he has done for us. And with this said, I'd like to do something nice for Mr. Thedford. I would love to do a memorial bench for Mr. Thedford with the sign that he actually had created where he has more than 15 dogs that have passed over his 92 years of age. The total cost is $2,300, and if you want to contribute, please reach out to Bobby, Kathy, and give directly to them. If we're successful in raising the $2,300 for the memorial bench for Mr. Thedford and Suzy to be placed by his gravesite, it will be presented on September 4th at 2 p.m. PAW PALS TV LLC has created a PAW PALS TV Pet Project 501c3 so that we can actually continue doing these stories for free, and so that we can continue helping municipal shelters across the state of Texas. If you'd like to contribute, the information is on the screen. Give what you can. At the end of the day, our goal is to change the ordinances and the laws until pets and animals have more rights in the state of Texas. Proverbs 12:10 states that a righteous man cares for his animals, but the tender mercies of the wicked is cruel. Remember, our shelter, our animal shelter, is only as good as us, the community. Be kind to your animals, spay, neuter, microchip, and if you have a problem, call us. This is Catalloy PAW PALS TV. We'll see you guys next Saturday at 5 for part 2 of Justice for Suzy.
I put out 120 flags, and the Noonday Cemetery Association bought the medal stands for them.
Wow.
And the flags. And I take care of getting them every Memorial Day on the Veterans Parade.
So as a Christian woman, I know that Suzy's in heaven and in a good place. Okay?
I have a full interview with him where he tells me how hard this is for him.
I'd like for them to be forced to cage the dogs and wait for someone to claim them.